Okay, you guys, I'm working on a 2013 BMW 328i. It's a four-door sedan with the four-cylinder turbo. It's listed as a F30 N20 is the motor. I've never done any work on a BMW, so I just want to make sure y'all don't have the same problems I had. But you'll see, looking at the top of the motor, pretty much everything that's disconnected. These covers had to come off, including the brace here to give me access to everything here. The fuel system had to be disconnected. The valve that was here had to come off because the valve cover goes around that. The cam sensors on the front here had to come off. This hose down here had to be disconnected. All your injectors, when you go to take your injectors off, just pull this up and it automatically pushes out the connector. There's some additional connectors here right above the injector. I just had to use needle nose and pull those straight out. These had to be taken loose. This rail doesn't need to come off, but you did have to disconnect these other two lines that came up to this valve. You didn't need to pull your injector or your coils, spark plug coils. Those didn't need to come out. The reason for the video is if you're not careful, you'll break your plastic valve cover, because on the back of this valve cover there's another piece here. It's I'm not sure what the sensor is, but it's a piece that goes through the valve cover. You'll see it right there. So there's a round part on another seal around the valve cover, and this piece is held on by T30 Torx screws. They're a little hard to get to. You have to use a 1/4 inch ratchet to be able to get down in there. Let's see what else. Oh, you've got these funky heads on these bolts. On all your bolts, everything uses these funky heads, but I found that if you're using just regular sockets, they tend to fit on there just fine, and the bolts aren't real tight. The only ones that were tight were the ones holding down the brace that goes across the engine. Aside from that, everything else you can pretty much break loose with a 1/4 inch ratchet. Make sure you get these in the middle when you take your valve cover bolts off. The bolts don't have to come off. There's a little sleeve that holds the valve cover bolts in there. You can pull them out if you want to, but it's not necessary. When I couldn't figure out how to get the valve cover off, I went ahead and pulled them all out just to make sure that that wasn't what was holding it on. This job calls for 5 hours, so it's a pretty big job. Unless you've done some work on cars before, this probably wouldn't be a good one to start on if you're a novice mechanic. Pull this off and I'll show you the valve cover. It's kind of tricky getting this off. Give me just a second. Okay, so here's the valve cover off the car. You'll see what I'm talking about, the round seal at the back. So that's why you don't want to pry on anything until you get that other valve off of the back. Okay, so the new gasket set I bought on eBay for $43. Dealer I think wanted about $55 for it with the taxes. So it'll come with your two new seals for each one of the ports there. The new seal for your fuel valve, and then the new seal that goes on this little hold down that holds down the other sensor. Good quality gasket, it looks like. Unlike the other video that I saw that had a flat gasket that was hard and brittle, the one on this valve cover is not hard at all. So it's a little harder than the new one, but not too bad. I'm thinking with this kind of rubber, I'd encourage you before you start doing any work to just try to snug down the valve cover bolts. Mine was leaking on the bottom side of the valve cover and leaking right onto the exhaust manifold and smelling pretty bad and smoking pretty bad as well. This engine only has 68,000 miles on it, so shouldn't have to replace gaskets that soon. So I'm really thinking that snugging them down might have taken care of the problem. So just try that first. So again, I've got about 2.5 hours into it, taking it apart, probably about a little quicker putting it back together. So if you've never done, any kind of major repair, I don't recommend you start on this one because it's a doozy. I've never done a valve cover this hard. That's all. Good luck, and enjoy your BMW. I'm going to enjoy mine.